somewhere in a windowless building, in an industrial corridor you will never find on a tourist map. A machine is building a weapon, not a missile, not a tank, something far more unsettling. A drone, lightweight, nearly silent, and rolling off the line every 11 minutes. This is the story of the factory floor that quietly redefined how wars are fought, how enemies are tracked, and how entire military doctrines were rendered obsolete not by generals, but by engineers with soldering irons and supply chain spreadsheets.
I'm standing just inside the entrance of a drone manufacturing facility. The first thing that strikes you isn't the technology, it's the silence. For something that produces instruments of war, it feels more like a semiconductor lab than an arms factory.
For most of the 20th century, military power was measured in steel, aircraft carriers, fighter jets, main battle tanks. These were machines that cost billions, took years to build, and required thousands of trained personnel to operate. A single F-35 Lightning II costs roughly $89 million. A single MQ-9 Reaper drone costs about $32 million. But the machines reshaping the battlefield today, some of them cost less than a used car.
On the table next to me, there's a row of airframes. Carbon fiber composite shells, each one weighing less than 4 kilograms. They look almost fragile. You'd never guess what they're designed to do.
The modern military drone assembly line is not what most people imagine. There are no sparks, no heavy presses, no rivers of molten metal. Instead, the environment resembles the clean rooms of consumer electronics manufacturing, temperature-controlled, dust-filtered, lit by the flat white glow of overhead LEDs. And that similarity is not a coincidence. Because the revolution in drone warfare was not born in a defense laboratory. It was born in Shenzhen.
I'm looking at a component tray right now, and I can recognize parts that could easily belong inside a smartphone. Gyroscopes, GPS modules, lithium polymer batteries. The crossover between consumer tech and military hardware is striking.
The city of Shenzhen, China, produces over 70% of the world's consumer drones. The supply chains that emerged to feed the global appetite for camera drones, racing quadcopters, and hobbyist aircraft created something the defense industry didn't anticipate: a massive, low-cost ecosystem of miniaturized components. Brushless motors that once cost $40 dropped to $3. Inertial measurement units shrank to the size of a fingernail. Flight controllers became open source, and suddenly, the barrier to building a capable autonomous flying machine collapsed. Not gradually, overnight.
There's a bin beside the assembly station filled with flight controller boards. Hundreds of them, each one smaller than a credit card. The engineer next to me just told me they receive shipments of 10,000 units at a time.
Yes, the scale is incredible.
Truly amazing.
This is the part of the story the public rarely sees. Behind every drone on the battlefield, there is a logistics pipeline of staggering complexity. A single tactical surveillance drone might contain components sourced from 9 different countries: infrared sensors from France, semiconductors from Taiwan, batteries from South Korea, carbon fiber from Japan, software stacks written in Ukraine, Israel, and the United States. Each component arrives on a just-in-time schedule, is inspected, cataloged, and fed into an assembly sequence that has been optimized down to the movement of a technician's hands.
I'm watching a technician install an optical payload into a fixed-wing airframe. She's using a torque-controlled screwdriver and a magnification visor. Every fastener tightness measured in Newton centimeters. Every fastener has a specified tightness measured in Newton centimeters. There's no guesswork here, it's pure precision.
The anatomy of a modern military drone is deceptively simple. At its core, you have 5 systems: airframe, propulsion, avionics, payload, and communications. The airframe provides structure and aerodynamics. In smaller tactical drones, this is almost always a carbon fiber or reinforced polymer shell light, strong and cheap to mold. Propulsion varies. Multi-rotor drones use electric brushless motors. Fixed-wing variants often employ small gasoline or electric pusher engines, capable of sustaining flight for 8 to 20 hours depending on size.
There's a testing jig to my left where they're running a motor at full RPM inside an acoustic enclosure. The sound is a high-pitched whine, almost like a dental drill. They're measuring thrust-to-weight ratios in real time on a monitor above the station.
Avionics are the brain, and this is where the real revolution has occurred. A military-grade flight controller today integrates GPS, GLONASS, and increasingly, satellite-denied navigation using visual inertial odometry. That means the drone can navigate without any satellite signal at all, using onboard cameras and accelerometers to map its own position relative to the terrain. This capability, once exclusive to cruise missiles costing millions, now runs on a chip that costs less than $200.
I'm in a section of the facility they call the integration bay. Rows of drones sit on stands, each one with its top panel removed. Technicians are connecting ribbon cables between the flight controller and the communications module. It reminds me of open heart surgery, but on machines.
The payload is what gives a drone its mission. For reconnaissance, this means electro-optical and infrared cameras, some capable of identifying a human face from an altitude of 3,000 meters. For strike missions, the payload is a munition. In some of the most effective battlefield drones used in recent conflicts, the entire drone is the munition, a loitering weapon. It flies to a target area, circles, waits, identifies, and dives. The drone and the bomb are one and the same. These are called one-way attack systems, and they cost between $5,000 and $50,000 each. Compare that to a Tomahawk cruise missile at nearly $2 million.
In the corner of this room, I can see a rack of warheads, small, shaped charges, each about the size of a coffee mug. They're being weighed individually on precision scales before installation. It's chillingly routine.
Communications. The fifth system is perhaps the most strategically vulnerable. A drone is only as effective as its data link. Most tactical drones operate on encrypted radio frequencies in the C-band or L-band spectrum, with ranges from 10 to over 150 kilometers depending on antenna configuration and relay infrastructure. Electronic warfare jamming, spoofing, signal hijacking represents the single greatest threat to drone operations today. And that is why some of the most closely guarded technology in any drone factory is not the drone itself, it's the radio.
I've just been shown a communications module that I'm told took 3 years to develop. It's no larger than a pack of playing cards.
They wouldn't let me photograph it. The engineer simply said, "This is what keeps the pilot connected."
Now consider the scale. In 2023, Ukraine was reportedly producing over 200,000 drones per month across a decentralized network of factories, workshops, and converted garages. Turkey's Baykar facility in Istanbul manufactures the TB, 2 Bayraktar, on a line that can produce one completed airframe every 48 hours. In China, state-backed manufacturers are producing reconnaissance and strike drones at volumes that Western intelligence agencies have described as, quote, industrial-scale saturation capability. Iran's Shahed 136, a delta-wing loitering munition, is assembled in a facility that reportedly runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The unit cost is estimated at as little as $20,000.
I'm walking through what they call the final assembly corridor. Completed drones are lined up on rolling carts, each tagged with serial numbers and QA stamps. I count 27 in this row alone. And they told me this is just today's output.
Before any drone leaves the factory, it must pass through a testing protocol that is more rigorous than most people would expect. First, structural load testing. The airframe is subjected to simulated G-forces, typically up to 6 Gs, using hydraulic jigs. Next, avionics verification. The flight controller is booted in a hardware-in-the-loop simulator that replicates GPS signals, wind conditions, and sensor inputs. The drone believes it is flying. Every navigation algorithm is stress-tested against failure scenarios. Then comes communications range testing, usually conducted in an anechoic chamber or across a controlled outdoor range.
I'm standing at the edge of an outdoor test strip right now. A fixed-wing drone just launched from a pneumatic rail about 40 meters ahead of me. It climbed fast, faster than I expected, and banked sharply to the east.
Altitude 5,500, speed 600 knots, vector 0 to 23. Confirmed.
Altitude increasing, rugged as steady.
Once cleared, the drones enter packaging and logistics, a stage that is itself an engineering challenge. Strike drones are typically shipped in stackable composite crates, each containing the airframe, wings detached, payload, ground control unit, and launch system. A single shipping container, a standard 20-foot intermodal unit, can carry between 12 and 36 complete drone systems, depending on the model. This means a single cargo flight on a C-17 Globemaster can deliver over 100 combat-ready drones to a theater of operations in under 24 hours.
The warehouse behind me is stacked floor to ceiling with olive-colored crates, each one stenciled with handling codes and lot numbers. Forklifts are moving between the rows. It feels less like a weapons depot and more like an Amazon fulfillment center. And honestly, that comparison is not far off.
This is the new arms race, and it is not about building the most advanced drone. It is about building the most drones, the fastest, at the lowest cost. Military strategists call this the problem of mass. A single, sophisticated air defense system, a Patriot battery, for example, costing about $1 billion can be overwhelmed by a swarm of 50 drones, costing a total of $250,000. The math is brutal, and it favors the attacker. For the first time in modern military history, the cost curve has inverted. It is now cheaper to attack than to defend.
I've just spoken to a production manager who told me their biggest challenge isn't engineering, it's procurement. Securing enough chips, enough motors, enough lithium cells to keep the line running. We're not fighting a technology war, we're fighting a supply chain war.
And this is where the geopolitical implications become impossible to ignore. The nations that control the supply chains for drone components, semiconductors, rare earth magnets, precision optics, battery chemistry, hold disproportionate influence over the future of conflict. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's advanced semiconductors. China dominates rare earth processing. Japan leads in carbon fiber manufacturing. A disruption in any one of these nodes doesn't just delay a product launch. It delays a war effort. Drone manufacturing has quietly become a matter of national security, not just for what happens on the assembly line, but for who controls the materials that feed it.
As I leave the facility, I look back at the building from the outside. It's unremarkable. Flat walls, no signage, a parking lot. You could drive past it 100 times and never know what's being built inside. And maybe that's the point.
The drone assembly line has done something no single weapons program has achieved in decades. It has democratized lethal air power. Nations that could never afford a fifth-generation fighter jet can now field hundreds of autonomous strike platforms. Non-state actors can build surveillance drones from commercial components and open-source software. The factory floor has become the front line, and the engineers behind it, anonymous, methodical, relentless, have reshaped the architecture of modern war without ever firing a shot. The question is no longer whether drones will dominate the battlefield. That question has already been answered. The question now is whether the world can adapt to a reality where the most dangerous weapon in any conflict is also the cheapest, the smallest, and the easiest to build. Because somewhere right now, in a building with no sign on the door, another one just rolled off the line, and then another, and then another.